Hello and welcome to this session. This session is on data marts of MCS 221 data warehousing and data mining, block 1, unit 2. And this particular session is the fifth in its series. So earlier we had seen 4 sessions regarding the introduction to data warehouses, architecture, types of data warehouses, applications, benefits, and other essential components of data warehouses. In this session, let us focus on data marts. The session is organized in a way that we will define the data mart, reasons to use the data marts, data warehouse versus data mart, what is the basic difference, benefits of data marts, types of data marts, designing of data marts, limitations, and one use case. So we can define the data warehouse as a huge centralized repository of the transactional data. So that pertains to an the whole centralized repository pertains to an organization. Coming to the data mart, it is a subset of data warehouse focused on a particular line of business, department, or subject area. If you remember, in the data warehouse definition, we had mentioned one essential characteristics of the data warehouse, that is subject orientation, and then non-volatile, time sharing, integrated. So these were the characteristics. Among these characteristics, the subject oriented characteristic is very important characteristic. So here, in the huge repository of a data warehouse, we store the data in the form of subject orientation, that too time, non-volatile, and other kinds of things. But when we talk about the subset of a data warehouse, that is a simple data mart. It is a repository repository of data once again, but that data repository is only for one subject area. For example, it may be sales data mart, it may be finance data mart, or it may be marketing data mart. So this is nothing but a simple subject orientation from the overall data warehouse. So data marts make specific data available to a defined group of users, which allows those users to access the data for that department or business function, and then they will be putting the queries, and then they will be getting the insights or the outcomes. These data marts are defined to meet the needs of specific groups by having a comparatively narrow subject area. So it may be constituting only the data pertains to sales, or else another data mart may be having a content repository of only the marketing data. So likewise, this is a kind of comparatively narrow subject of data. A data mart can contain millions of records. So a sales data mart can contain millions of data. There is no restriction in storage, but there is a restriction in the data mart wherein which subject data we are storing in that particular data mart. So its objective is to provide business users with the most relevant data in the shortest amount of time. So this is the whole definition and the functionality of the data warehouse. For example, many companies have various departments. But when we talk about a specific department in the overall business, so it may be a finance, one data mart may be focused on finance division, one data mart may be focused on sales division or marketing division. So in this way, we can give the examples of the data marts that too subject oriented. So this is a simple example, and the illustration that is shown on the slide Here you can see there are various source data systems on the extreme left hand side. And then as we had seen earlier, this is the staging area, that is cleansing, transforming and other kinds of things will be taking place here in the data staging area. And then this particular area you can see load. So after cleaning and everything is happened in the data staging area, the data is being loaded as per the subject. You can see here there are altogether 5 data marks shown on the third rectangular block, wherein which the data and the metadata of the data marts are stored here. So data mart 1 may be having only the sales data, data mart 2 may be having only the marketing data, data mart 3 may be having the financial data. Likewise, you can distribute the data as per the subject oriented way. So here there is no centralized data repository as you can see, but it is stored in the form of DM1, DM2, DM3 likewise. Altogether, if there is a need wherein which you have to combine, or else you can merge all the data and can plan for a data centralized data warehouse also. So this is how we can show the difference between a centralized data warehouse and a constitution of the data warehouses as per their subject area. So let us see the reasons why we have to store that too using the subject orientation. One reason may be regional offices can be more responsive to their local market. In India, suppose if a company is having various branches situated in various states, so the regional offices can be more focused onto the local market, local needs, local customers by having access to data relevant to local customers. Yet, data they enter into records, sales call summaries and marketing data is fed into the centralized data warehouse. So there may be a composition kind of thing wherein which the data pertaining to the regional needs are being stored in the local data marts, and then the sales call summaries and marketing data may be stored or may be forwarded into the centralized data warehouse. Specific departments can have rapid access to critical information with a data mart. So when we talk about the data warehouse, it is a huge repository, and the accessing that particular data warehouse using the access rights given or privileges given to the user, and then the query that is placed upon the huge database repository and the insight that we are getting may take some time. Even though it is pertaining to only one particular subject, it may take time by accessing the whole centralized repository. So with these particular data marks, specific departments can have a rapid access, very fast access, so that the insights or the outcomes can be easily procured. Ad hoc queries will generate different results depending on the parameters used. This can lead to confusion for critical parts of the business. Data masks can make sure the entire division is looking at the same set of data based on the same parameters. So this is another reason why the data is being stored in the data mart. So I hope you had understood all these 3 reasons. So these are the essential reasons which prompted the researchers to concentrate upon data marts, although a centralized data warehouse can be planned for an organization. Let us see the basic difference between the data warehouse versus the data mart. So coming to this particular whole differentiation, I had separated using some parameters. So first we take the parameter of storage and management. Highly structured repository of data in case of data warehouses. In case of data marts, you can see these are also highly structured repository of database. However, only specific department-wise or business function-wise that particular data will be stored. When we come to the parameter called as the scope of the data, this is centralized store of whole entire data of the organization. But data mart consists of only the data storage or the repository for a specific division or the business function. When we come to the parameter called as access or privileges issued to the users, strict access control needs to be given to the whole data warehouse. Why? Because this is a huge repository, and everybody in the organization, there may be several employees who will be working on with the data warehouses by placing the queries. So there should be a strict access control when compared with the data marks, wherein which only the employees pertaining to the specific domain or specific department, those are the users of the data mark pertains to them. So there the number of employees accessing the data marts will be very much less when compared to the accessibility of the centralized data warehouse. So coming to the querying, it is difficult to put queries or loop on queries onto the data warehouse, but it will be a very much simple when we talk about the data mart. Coming to the creation parameter of the data warehouse and data warehouse created from transactional data, internal other data sources. Here also, there may be a chance where in which I had shown the illustration in the previous slide, where in which directly from the internal sources, the data is being pulled into the individual data marts as per the specific domain. However, there may be a chance where in which the whole data will be stored in the centralized data warehouse. From the centralized data warehouse, the data marts can be drawn into. So there is two-way practice, and then both the practices are well and good for the constructing the data marts. So how to create? This is one of the parameter. So using the bottom-up approach, various data marts can be merged together to create a data warehouse. Even the vice versa is also possible, wherein which after creating the complete pool of data warehouse, the data marts can also be drawn. Coming to the query results, these particular queries, whatever are being placed against the data warehouse, there will be slow, the results will be appearing in a slower way when compared to the data marts, wherein which we are concentrating upon only some data pertaining to one particular division. So in a nutshell, data mart is for a specific company department and normally a subset of an enterprise data warehouse. Data marts improves the query because they are very much faster when compared to the queries or else the insights provided by the data warehouse. The data warehouse help make enterprise-wide strategic decisions, but when we talk about the data marts, they don't give the complete overall strategic picture of the company. However, the insights will provide a kind of detailed summaries of that particular department level or else that particular business function only. Data warehouse includes many data sets and takes time to update. Data marks handle very smaller data pertains to the division, so they are very much faster. Data warehouse implementation can take many years, but data marts, you can pull them very easily. Using some simple packages like Oracle and other kinds of things, which have the features of construction of the data marts, you can like take the licenses from them, and then you can pull the data into the data marts and you can use them or else find the insights using the data marts very easily. So coming to the benefits, the first benefit we can clearly look into is the cost efficiency. Constructing a huge data warehouse is very much expensive when we talk about the data mart, because it is having, when compared to the huge data repository called as data warehouse, the data mart is a limited repository wherein which it can be constructed very easily, that too with a low cost. And the second simplified thing is it has a simplified data access. These data marts only hold a small subset of the overall data of the organization. So there will be a simple data access needed for the data mass. Quicker access, as we had already seen, when compared to the data warehouses, quicker access can be given to the data mass. It is very much simpler in data maintenance, very much easier and faster when we implement, because it doesn't contain any huge kinds of data storages required when we talk about the hardware part. So these particular storages can be very much limited. Maybe suppose if a company is having 10 departments within itself, data warehouse may be running to some sort of hundreds of terabytes. But when for next 5 years or so, but when we see only specific domain or a specific department, it may be end up with some sort of 50 TB or so within 2 years or something like that. So this is very easy and faster implementation. There are various types of data mart one can visualize. There are three types here we can see on the slide. The first type of the data mart is called as the dependent data marts, and second one is the independent data mart, and third one is the hybrid data mart. So as the name suggests, you can see dependent data mart. It is dependent on something else. So it is just a subset of something else. So these particular dependent data marts are partition segments within an enterprise data warehouse. So it is just a chunk of repository or chunk of data, and it is dependent on the centralized data warehouse. So this top-down approach begins with the storage of all business data in one central location. The newly created data marts extract a defined subset of the primary data whenever required for analysis. So if you talk about the marketing, so from that data mart, the marketing data mart, the data will be pulled, or else once the query is placed against the marketing data mart, only the insights of the marketing will be displayed to the user. So this is a simple illustration of dependent data marts. So here you can see the extreme left is the external sources, and then the data staging is there, extract, transform and loading area, and then you can see the whole data, the ETL is the data after the ETL is being loaded into the centralized data warehouses, and then from the centralized data warehouses the data marts are created. Like data mart 1 is created, 2 is created, 3 is created, 4 is created. So altogether the whole system, the data marts are completely dependent on the centralized repository called as the data warehouse. So the name itself is saying that all the data marts are dependent on the centralized data warehouse. Second type is independent. So these particular data marts are very much independent, and from the ETL, extract, transform and loading, directly the data pertaining to one specific business function or area or domain will be pulled into the individual data marts. So they act as a standalone system. They doesn't rely on any data warehouse. No need of pulling the data from a centralized data warehouse. Once the ETL is already in place, obviously the data coming from the ETL automatically transfers the data into the data mart 1, 2, 3, likewise as many departments as you have. So this is the illustration of independent data marts, wherein which external resources are shown here on the left side. Then ETL is there, ETL tools are there, and then from the ETL directly the data is being pulled into the data marts. Here, when compared to the earlier type, you can see the non-existence of the centralized data warehouse. The data is being directly coming, and depending upon the domain or depending upon the department, directly the data mart is being pulled into. So the third type is hybrid data marts. So hybrid means it is a kind of mix. So some organizations find it practical to consider a hybrid model where some data marts are dependent on a centralized data warehouse and some exist on their own. So mix in the sense that you had seen the dependent, you had seen the independent. This is the mix. Hybrid is the mix of both independent and the dependent. So there may not be those many data marts as you have those many departments in an organization. However, after the ETL is there, the whole data will be pulled into a centralized data repository. And suppose if there are frequent queries on sales, frequent queries on marketing, and frequent queries on some other thing, so only those three data marts will be maintained from the data warehouse, and other departments will not be maintaining any kinds of data marts. So this is a kind of data mart hybrid approach. For these reasons, you have the customer, whoever opts for the hybrid model, he has to put certain questions, that to 4 questions, to determine which type suits the best. So these are the 4 questions. Are business units managed as standalone entities, or are they considered part of a whole? So this is the first question one has to put into in order to go for the hybrid. Second question is, does company culture encourage information sharing, or do individual business units hoard knowledge? Third one is, are individual business units staffed to handle the intricacies of data management, or else whole solely only some people are designated as the data science experts who will be directly dealing with the data warehouse or the data mart? And the fourth question is, similarly, is the centralized database team committed to respond rapidly to the needs of discrete business units, or do bureaucracy and egos interfere? So these are the four questions one needs to put to determine which type suits the best. And the illustration of the hybrid data marts is as shown, like these are the external sources shown on the left side, ETL, then data warehouse. And here the company may be having so many departments, like 5 to 10 departments. However, whichever are frequently getting the queries, only those particular data marts will be maintained as the part of the data mart from the centralized pool. So this is the third variety or the third type of data mart. So when we structure the data mart, what kind of modeling is available? So when we structure the data mart, companies organized all these data marts in a multi-dimensional schema. In the core databases, we had seen something called as relational database management system, hierarchical database management system, or network management database management system. But here you are hearing a different kind of term called as the multi-dimensional database schema. So this is the schema or modeling thing that we'll be following when we design the data warehouse or else a data mart. There are three main types of multidimensional schema. One is the star schema, second is the snowflake schema, and the third is the data vault. So in the third unit of MCS 221, block 1, it completely deals with the dimensional modeling, wherein which we can list only these particular things here. However, the details of these particular types of multidimensional schema we will see in the next sessions, wherein which we will be talking about the star schema, snowflake schema, data vaults, and how to model the data warehouse or data mart using these particular three schemas. And then coming to the designing of the data marts. So here, when we wish to design a kind of data mart, this simply follows a kind of software development lifecycle kind of thing, wherein which first of all the essential requirements are to be gathered. Like suppose if a company, there are 5 departments and you have to design the data mart for 5 different departments of that particular organization. So all the requirements from all the 5 departments needs to be gathered, which kind of data queries are anticipated, like what kind of frequent insights that the users are coming up to, like what kind of forecast one needs to insights or forecast one needs to put on to in order to take a strategical decision. So all these things you have to have a kind of essential requirements gathering, and then only you can proceed on to the next step called as the building of the data mart. So there are several packages available in order to build up the data mart. So you have to select one of the package, and then you have to develop the build the data marts depending upon the subject area. Then you have to populate or transfer the data after the ETL is done, extract, transform, and loading is done. And then data access, that is providing the privileges to the users. How many users of the department will be using that particular data mart? One needs to have a kind of assessment, and then he has to see at what level they will be putting the queries, and then you have to provide the data access to that particular users, and then manage. This is just like maintenance in the SDLC, you have to manage the whole data mart. So once we talk about the data warehouse and data marts, data warehouse has its own limitations, as well as the data marts are also having some sort of limitations. Like these particular data marts, when we wish to create, they are not necessarily the right solution for every group. That is what, if you go for the hybrid, I told you that only certain department requires the data marts. However, for the rest of the departments, the queries can be directly taken from the centralized data warehouse itself. Too many data marts will become difficult to manage. That is the second limitation. And the third limitation is a data mart strategy that automatically propagates data right might result in unbudgeted expenses. So this is also one. So expenditure is also one of the factor that one needs to take care of. And then the third one is if deploying independent data marts, often overlooked details like field name syntax could suddenly become critically important to align at a high level. And then this otherwise you would run into trouble when building reports to run across the data marks. So one thing, one field you had taken at something else like course underscore code, and then in the second thing wherever the course code is appearing, you had placed the column name as CC. So there should be a kind of consistency across the data marts also. So that particular consistency you have to maintain in order to avoid such kind of troubles when the reports are being generated. So let us see a simple use case. We have talked so many things about the data marts. And then let us see a simple use case over here to illustrate how often or else how an effective data mart can help a business unit. Here we are considering two things. Consider a marketing department tracking campaign performance. So here we wish to know that what sales are generated, but also how campaign exposure led prospects to become customers. So here a particular company has already given a kind of campaigning performance or else placing something just like an ad or something like that. So it wants to see what kind of sales, additional sales are being generated because of the campaign that they had placed onto the website or else onto the social media platforms. So the marketing department data mart will draw the data from the web analytics platform to measure responsiveness to the campaigns and trace the activity on its site. One thing, they are getting the inputs from the social media or else like from the web analytics. That is the one thing that they are getting. And the second thing that they are getting is through the data marts that they have. It also taps remarketing and ad data to identify potential customers' previous activity. So then it connects the data to top level sales data such as revenue generated by campaigns and other campaigns to which prospects and customers react. Here you can see whatever the ad campaign that they had carried on, that also plays the major role. Otherwise, they had spent a huge amount into the ad campaign. However, the customers, whoever were there in the previous year, the same thing, same customers are being repeated. There you can see huge budget has gone into the ad campaign. However, there are no potential add-on users when compared to the previous year. So here you can see the data mart can be a good connecting feature wherein which it connects the one thing called as the campaign thing and the other thing called as the analytics thing, and then it can give you a wonderful results. Instead of drawing this data from the entire history stored in the data, this marketing department needs only to access data from the past 2 years, enough to enable to see trends and adjust for the seasonal variables. Meanwhile, the data mart combines arcane marketing codes with a product identifier table to create user readable labels that make the report easier to understand. Here you can see the potential role played by the data mart other than the analytics platform that you have called as the web-enabled analytics platform. So with this, I hope you understood the today's session, which consists of the definition of data marts, the benefits of the data marks, types of the data marks, and then the limitations. And we had seen one particular case study wherein which you can put onto the data mark and then you can use the data mark. With this, I end session. All the best.
Are you a fresh graduate? Do you want to fulfill your educational aspiration by pursuing higher education in various interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary areas? like environmental science, environment and occupational health, philosophy, sustainability science, folklore and culture studies? If yes, the School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies offers various programs like master's program, graduate program, postgraduate diploma, certificate and appreciation program. The school offers 5 master's program. Master of Science, Environmental Science. The eligibility criteria for MSc Environmental Science is graduate in science, BTech, BE, agriculture graduate, forestry graduate and veterinary graduate. School also offers Masters in Environment and Occupational Health, Masters in Sustainability Science, Masters in Philosophy and Masters in Folklore and Culture Studies. The eligibility criteria for these 4 master's programs is graduate in any discipline. School also offers various socially relevant and need-based PG Diploma program like PG Diploma in Sustainability Science, PG Diploma in Environment and Occupational Health, PG Diploma in Folklore and Culture Studies and PG Diploma in Migration and Diaspora Studies. The school also offers PG Certificate in Climate Change and Avshist Prabandhan mein Pramar Patra. The school also offers 2 doctoral programs, PhD in Environmental Science and PhD in Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies. The school offers various innovative technologies and multimedia for providing a very excellent student support system. The study material is of high quality. The learner support is provided through Gyan Darshan, Gyan Vani, IRC, Swayam Prabha and Swayam channel of IGNOU. For more detail, please log in to IGNOU website. For online admission in these programs, visit school site and also the Samarth online education portal of IGNOU. So please join these programs and fulfill your educational aspiration.
Namaskar, dear viewers, welcome to the session on project work of PGDFSQM and MSc FSQM program. I especially welcome all our students of PG Diploma in Food Safety and Quality Management program and the MSc in Food Safety and Quality Management program to this session, because this is a compulsory course for both the programs, PGDFSQM and MSc FSQM. So as you know that the MSc program is a modular program which is having exit option for the PG diploma after successful completion of first year. So the syllabus of the first year of MSc is similar to the syllabus of the PG diploma program. And the coursework, project coursework of MSc is also in the first year. So the project guidelines, the approaches, the project work you need to do in your master's and your PG diploma are same for both the programs. Only difference is that there is a difference in the project code. For the MSc program, the project code is MPPP003, and for the PGDFSQM program, PG diploma program, the project code is MPPP001. So I have already shared with you the program guide through email, the program guide of PG Diploma, PGDFSQM program, which is having the project guidelines for both the programs. So I hope that you have already gone through the project guide. But if you still have some queries, because I am receiving so many queries through phone call and emails from the students about the project course, and we are also receiving the project synopsis in such a raw form, that means that shows that you have not, many of you have not understood the concept of project work completely. So what I will do in this session, I'll try to help you to understand what are the main components of your project work, how to select your project topic, how to select your project guide, how to prepare a project synopsis, project report, and how to submit and where to submit. So in this session, we'll try to understand that in a better way so that you can complete your project work in your first attempt successfully. So let's have a look at the objectives of this project work course. So you must know what you are expected to learn from this project course. The objectives of this project course is to develop capabilities of students, that means your capabilities, for a comprehensive analysis of design, development, and implementation of important food safety management system, quality management systems, and that definitely includes the hazard analysis and critical control point, or HACCP, different good practices like good agriculture practices, good manufacturing practices, good hygienic practices, good animal practices, good retail practices, good transport practices, good laboratory practices. So all these good practices, you will know about the implementation of these good practices while you will be doing your project work. Another objective of this project is also to help you to undertake any kind of investigation in a systematic way. So we hope that after doing this project work, you will be able to undertake any investigation in future in your workplace, and this will definitely help the master students to do their research work. In the second year, of course, syllabus, if you have seen, the master students, if you have seen your second year syllabus, you must have seen that there is a compulsory component of dissertation, that is your research work. So if you do your project work seriously, that will help you to do your research work in the second year. So now we'll see what are the approaches that you can follow to do your project work. You should know that you can choose any topic which is related to the food safety and quality management. So there are total 8 courses in your first year syllabus of masters and in PG diploma program, and there are 4 completely theory based courses. One is food chemistry and food nutrition, another one is food laws and standards, then there is one course on principles of food safety and quality management, then food safety and quality management systems. There is one course on food microbiology, which is an integrated course having theory and practical, both the components. There are 2 completely practical courses. One is for chemical analysis of the food and quality assurance, and another one is for food safety and quality management. So if you have already gone through your study materials in theory and in practical, if you have attended your practicals, so you had the idea what are the important components, what are the important points you need to know to design or develop or implement food safety and quality management systems in a food establishment, and you also know how to do the audit in a food industry or food establishment. So you have already gained those theory and practical knowledge, so you have to apply it in your project work. While you will be choosing the project topic, you have to choose such a topic which is related with any of your courses, any of the topic you have studied in your theory and practical course, you can take up in your project work. Second thing, where you can do your project work, you can go to any food manufacturing unit, you can visit there, and you can go to any food packaging unit, food retailing unit, food transport system, or food testing laboratory, or even you can go to a street food vendors, you can visit street food vendors, or hotel, restaurants, canteen, kitchen, you can visit the kitchens. So you can do your project for any of such unit which is a food establishment. Then you must keep in mind that your project work needs to be a practice oriented. It should not be only the theory based or only the literature survey kind of thing. You have to do something on your own. You have to visit some place. You have to generate your primary data. You should not only depend on the secondary data which are available in different relevant documents, literature. So it has to be practice oriented, right? Then another important point is that it has to be challenging. Okay, you have to do something new which will have some important effect for improvement of the system, food safety and quality management system. But at the same time, you must also remember that it has to be manageable within the resources available to you, within the time available to. What I mean to say, the resources. For example, if you want to choose a topic for estimation of pesticide residues in food or heavy metals residues in food, which needs the high-end instruments for estimation of this pesticide residue or the heavy metal residue. So you need to have access to a food testing laboratory which is having all those equipments. If you don't have access, you should not select that kind of project topic for your study, right? And the time also you have to consider, because you have to complete your theory course, your practical course, your assignments in 1 year of time, and you also have to do your project work. So you can devote maximum 15 days of time for completing your project work. So you should keep in that your mind while you are deciding your objectives of your study. You should not choose too many objectives for your study. Then let's have a quick look at the broad themes which you can have, which your project work can have. You can do any project study in the area of good hygienic practices, good manufacturing practices, HACCP, quality management system, food safety management system, development of training modules. So you can develop training modules for different stakeholders like the food handlers, the workers, the media, the supervisor, the quality supervisor, the production supervisor, or the managers. And you can also choose a topic related to the food laws and standards, whether those are national laws and standards, whether those are international standards. You can choose any topic related to that. You can also work on the analysis of the food products, maybe the physical parameters, chemical parameters, microbiological and sensory qualities of the food product. You can do that also. Then your project work, the types of your project work that may include, it can be a comprehensive study, case study. It can be a comparison of practices, it can be validation of theory, can be a survey of quality management system or food safety management system. You can also have a field study. Now I'll discuss about the steps, the important steps you need to follow to do your project work. First important thing, you must know that there are two main components in your project course. One is preparation and submission of your project synopsis, that is proposal, and second one is the final project report, right? So I'll discuss one by one. First, you need to identify one project supervisor for your project course who will guide you, who will help you to do your project work, right? So first you identify your supervisor. I'll later on discuss the eligibility criteria for selection of a project supervisor. Then you choose your topic, select your project topic, you discuss with your supervisor, prepare the proposal synopsis, get it approved by your supervisor, signed by your supervisor and yourself. There is one pro forma for submission of the project proposal. So you get it signed by your supervisor, then submit it to the regional center. In your project guide, which is available in the website, it is mentioned that you should send the project synopsis and report to the headquarter, but there is slight change in the methodology actually. Now you need to submit both your project synopsis and your project report to the concerned regional center. Then after approval by the regional center of your project synopsis, you can start actual work on your project work. You can do the project work, you will have to prepare your report, you have to write your project report, then again you have to send the project report to the concerned regional center. So for PGDFSQM program, there will be a viva voce at the end of the means after submission of your project work and evaluation of your project report, but for MSc students, there will be no viva voce for the project course. Now, who can be your project supervisor? So you can choose anyone who is a faculty in School of Agriculture, IGNOU. The person can be a project supervisor. Then you can request also the academic counselors of PG diploma or master's program in food safety and quality management program in your study center who are having the relevant experience in your work area. Otherwise also you can take help as a project supervisor from any university, agriculture universities or veterinary university, dairy universities, means who the teachers who are having their PG degree, who are having the 5 years of PG teaching experience in related areas. For example, the person should have the experience in the area of food science and technology, food processing, quality assurance, food packaging, food testing, quality management, etc. Okay. If you don't find any supervisor from the college or university or your study center or School of Agriculture IGNOU, then you can also approach someone, food professionals who are working in industry, but the person needs to be a postgraduate in the food science and technology or the allied disciplines, and that person should have at least 5 years of experience in the food industry in the relevant area. So, what you need to do for development of your project synopsis? Synopsis, that means that is the kind of summary, proposal of your actual project work. That should not be very lengthy. You should keep in mind that it should be around, the synopsis can have around 500 words, not more than 500 to 600 words, okay? And the components of the project synopsis include the project topic. You should mention very clearly the statement of project topic. For example, your project topic can be a study on good manufacturing practices followed in a food industry. You mention the name of that food industry, or the area, the group may be in a dairy unit, maybe in a meat processing unit, or fruits and vegetable processing unit, like that. You should write it very clearly, the project topic. Then you should write the objectives of your study. That means which you intend to achieve from this project work. So you should write it clearly. The objective should be achievable. You should not keep too many objectives. You can write 2 to 3, maximum 4 objectives, because there is time constraint. You need to complete it within time, and it should be achievable also. Okay. Then you may write hypothesis if needed. That means hypothesis on which your project will be built on. So you may write that one. Then you should write the methodology, the actual design, means overall plan of your project work. Who will be your respondent? What kind of tools and techniques you are going to use for collection of data, for analysis of data? What is the population size, or how will you do the sampling? What is your actual plan of work, design of your work? That has to be mentioned in your methodology. Then you should write the implications of your project work. That is not the final one. In your project report, you will write elaborate the conclusion and the suggestion part, but here you can only write them what is the purpose of doing your project work, how it will help to improve the system of food safety and quality management system. If you still have some scope for writing 500 words, then you can also add some relevant literatures, very few, 2 to 3 relevant literatures. You should write the schedule, listing of activities, and the resources you are going to use for your project work. Okay. Then after writing your project synopsis, you have to send the synopsis to the regional center, and for that you need to send the biodata of your supervisor along with your project synopsis, and the project synopsis approval proforma that is given in the project guide. So you have to fill up that one, get it signed, duly signed by your project supervisor and by yourself, then send it along with your project synopsis to the regional center. You can submit the project synopsis throughout the year, anytime throughout the year, but the result declaration will depend on the time of your submission of your project report. So you should keep a copy of synthesis with you for your future reference. And you must mention the program code, the project the project code, project course, that is the MBP-001 for PGDF-SQM and MBP-003 for MSc program on the envelope itself. Otherwise, it may get misplaced in the regional center, so better you mention it on the envelope. And RC, then regional center will communicate to you about the approval or non-approval of your project work. There may be 2 reasons for non-approval of your project work, project synopsis. One thing, your project synopsis is not as per the guidelines, so it is not accepted, it is not approved. Then the suggestions, the comments will be communicated to you by the regional center. Another reason may be the project supervisor is not approved. The project supervisor, the eligibility criteria I mentioned earlier for the project supervisor, you should follow that one. Otherwise, your project supervisor will not be approved. Then you will be asked in both the cases whether your synopsis is not approved or your supervisor is not approved. You have to resubmit, revise your synopsis. You have to identify your new guide if the earlier guide is not approved. Then you have to resubmit the project synopsis along with your previous references, like the previous project synopsis which was rejected and the proforma which was rejected. You have to send all these documents along with your new revised project synopsis to the regional center. Then after approval of your project synopsis, you should start working on the actual project work, and while doing your project work, You will have to collect all the data, you have to analyze the data, you have to prepare your report. For report preparation, project report preparation, you should know what are the components you need to mention in your project report. First thing is the introduction of your project report. So in introduction part, you should write why did you choose that project work? Why did you choose that project topic? So what prompted you to choose that topic? You should mention it in the introduction, and how it will going to help you anyway to improve the food safety and quality management system, or to improve the understanding of the concept and the promoting the principles of food safety and quality management system. You should mention that in your introduction part. You have to write all the objectives you have mentioned in your project synopsis. The objectives which have already been approved, that you have to mention again in your project report, final report. Then you should write few review of literatures. That means you should mention here some of the works which already have been done by some other persons in the area of your work. So those are the references actually you have to mention here in the review of literature. You should mention at least 15 to 20 review of literatures. Then in methodology part, you have to discuss it in detail. The methodology, the tools, the techniques you are using. Maybe you are using the questionnaire, you are going for interviews for your respondents. Then you may be using some software for analysis of your data, for collecting your data. So all these things you have to mention in your methodology part. And you have to define your population. If you are going for any field study or experimental design, then you have to mention the population who are your target respondent, and then samples, how you are going to do the sampling. For example, if you are going to study the good manufacturing or good hygienic practices of the street food vendors in your locality, then you have to mention that I am going to observe the hygienic measures they are taking, the GHP they are following, the street vendors are following in my locality. You have to mention that area name, and then there may be around 100 or 200 street food vendors, but you will choose only 10 to 15. So you have to mention that sample size also. So all these things are needed to be mentioned in the methodology part. Then comes the findings of your study. So you may have quantitative or qualitative data of your study. So you have to analyze that data, and you can represent those data in the form of table, in the form of diagram, in some pictures format, and you have to explain what may be the reasons for those kind of findings. So that is your resultant discussion, the analysis of your data. Then suggestions. So whatever suggestions or recommendations you need to give for any changes for different people's, concerned people who are handling. So you may like to mention that in the suggestion part. Then comes conclusion. So in conclusion, you need to write the insights that you have gained through this exercise of your project work, what you have learned from this project work, how this is going to help to understand the concept of food safety and quality management, and also to promote the principles of food safety and quality management system in our country. So that you can write in your conclusion part. Then comes the bibliography, that is the reference part. Whatever reference you have mentioned in your introduction, or in review of literature, or in methodology, or in your result discussion analysis part, all these references are to be given in the bibliography. The detail of the person, the journal's names, if you are quoting some journal, then the journal name, volume, page number, etc. The sources, if you have taken some data from the websites, you need to mention everything in the bibliography. And you may also like to add the appendix if you have used any. For example, if you are going for interviewing some of your respondents, if you have prepared any questionnaire, then that questionnaire, if you have prepared any checklist, that checklist that can be added as appendix in your project report. So now let's see what are the important points you need to keep in mind while preparing and submitting your project report. So first thing, you have to prepare your project report in original form. You should write it in A4 size paper in double space, and it should not be too short or too lengthy. It can be around 50 to 60 pages, and it has to be plagiarism free. Whenever you are writing any project report, you should keep in mind that you should not copy it from anywhere. You should not copy the work of anyone else. You should not copy the text from any other places. You have to write it in your own word. It has to be your own work. Okay, you should keep that in mind. and then you have to send the report to the regional center. And while sending your project report, please attach your approved project synopsis, the supervisor's biodata, and also the approved pro forma of project synopsis. You should attach all these things with your project report. So again, on the envelope, you should mention the project program code and the project code, project work course code, that is MBPP001 or MBPP003. And I'll suggest you always keep a copy of your synopsis and copy of your project report along with you for the future reference. And you can submit the project report anytime throughout the year, but if you submit your project report by coming this 31st of May of this 2023, then your result of project work will come along with the result of the term and examination, which takes place in June 2023. If you submit after 31st of May, before 30th of November this year, then your result will come along with the result of the term and examination that takes place in December 2023. So you have to keep in mind, either you should submit it before 31st May or 1st June to 30th November. So accordingly your result will come. Now we'll have a quick look at some list of suggested topics. There are around 25 suggested topics have been given in your project guide. So I'll take the, I'll just read out the suggested topics list. Like you can take, select a project work topic like study on effective implementation of corrective action and preventive actions as per QMS. I hope that you have already studied about the quality management system in your theory course, and you have also done some practicals on quality management system and food safety management system. So you know what are the corrections or corrective actions. So you can study how these are implemented in any food establishment. You can also select a topic like study of good hygienic practices of street food vendors. You can study on good manufacturing practices or GMP in different food industries, maybe dairy plant, maybe fruits and vegetables, maybe pickle making, maybe juice making unit, or maybe a meat plant, so like that. Okay, then you can also develop the training modules for workers on GMPs and GHP. You can also develop training module for the middle management and the supervisors. You can have a study on compliance to legal and customer requirements related to food safety and hygiene in a food establishment. You can choose a topic on appropriate CCP, that is critical control point identification for a food establishment. I'm sure that you have studied about your HACCP system, that is hazard analysis and critical control point, in your theory. So you know how to identify a CCP in a food establishment. You can take up that topic also. Then you can monitor the CCP. You can study on CCP monitoring, corrective actions and verifications in food organization. You can study the existing food laws, that is in our country we have Food Safety and Standards Act, rules and regulations. You can choose any topic related to the there are around 25 regulations there in the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India as per the Food Safety and Standards Act 2006. So you can take any topic related to those food laws. You can study on internal external communication in an organization for ensuring compliance to FSMS. You can study on effective cleaning of equipment in a food establishment, then hygienic practices at raw material suppliers premises, suitability of packaging material at various stages of packaging. You can compliance on labeling requirements for domestic and imported food items. You can study on waste management, pest management, method for establishing the shelf life of the product. You can study on allergens. You can study on calibration of instruments and food in food industry. So you can choose this kind of topic, or you can choose any other topic which is related to food safety and quality management system, which you have studied in your theory and practical courses. Now we will see what are the project report evaluation criteria. So for MSc and PG diploma, both the programs, the report will be evaluated, and 25% of the weightage for report evaluation is given to the task definition and approaches, that is your objectives and your methodology. 50% is for literature review, findings and your evaluation, and 25% for your communication of ideas and presentation. So be careful while preparing your report. You should be careful that 25% weightage is given for your presentation, right? And for PG diploma program, there will be Viva VC also. So I hope that from today's session, you got some idea about how to do your project work, how to write your project synopsis and project report and submit it to the regional center, and what is the evaluation criteria. If you still have some queries, you can write to us, and I will request you all to go through again the project guide which I have shared with you all through the emails. And I wish you all the best for your project work. Thank you for watching this program. Namaskar.
We welcome you to join the bouquet of programs offered by the School of Humanities, the Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. The Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi is a mega university today. It was created by an Act of Parliament in 1985. It is the world's largest university with an enrollment of about 3.5 million current students and 3.2 million alumni. IGNOU has also been accorded the highest grade of academic excellence, A++, by the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, or the NAC. Now, during your time at IGNOU as a learner, we will help you complete your program of study with world-class printed materials, audio and video programs. We have more than 35,000 academic counselors who will guide you till you complete your program of study. We also provide live interaction with your teachers at the headquarters via teleconferencing mode, and live interactive radio counseling besides this, supported by regular TV and radio broadcasts. The School of Humanities was created in 1988, and we welcome you warmly to join any of our programs of study. IGNOU degrees, diplomas and certificates are recognized not only in the country but are also very well received across the globe. We look forward to your journey with us, and we welcome you once again.
कल्पनाओं में जब इंसान खोता है तो वह अभिव्यक्त करता है एक ऐसे संसार को जो उसने सोचा होता है। और सोचने की जब हम बात करते हैं तो इस चीज़ को आसानी से समझा जा सकता है कि हमारा जो दिमाग है वह किस तरीके से किसी चीज़ को सकारात्मक और किसी चीज़ को नकारात्मक, या फिर वह जो समाज में घटित हो रहा है उसको वह अपने ही तरीके से सोचता है। आज मैं आपको लेके चलती हूँ दो चीज़ों के एक अंतर के बारे में। आज हम चर्चा करेंगे जिसमें कल्पना और यथार्थ की कल्पना जो है वह कितनी, जिसे हम कहेंगे कि मनमोहक होती है, और यथार्थ किस तरीके से उसके विपरीत होता है। जी हाँ, आज हम बात करने वाले हैं उपन्यास और आत्मकथा की। उपन्यास उपजमा न्यास, ऐसी वस्तु जो हमारे पास रखी हुई है, जो बिल्कुल हमारे नज़दीक है, और उसे हम कल्पना का जामा पहना के इस तरीके से प्रस्तुत करते हैं जैसे हमें लगता है कि हमारे साथ ही घटित हो रहा हो। कितने ही ऐसे उपन्यास हैं जिनके ऊपर फिल्में भी बन चुकी हैं। जब हम फिल्में देखने लगते हैं तो कई बार देखा जाता है कि व्यक्ति जो है देखते देखते उसकी आंखों से आंसू झरझर बहने लगते हैं। समझ ही नहीं आता है कि आखिर वह रो क्यों रहा है। कहीं ना कहीं हम एकाकार हो जाते हैं उस व्यक्तित्व के साथ जो हमें अपने जैसा लगता है। उपन्यास में भी यही होता है कि पास की रखी हुई वस्तु हमारे जैसा ही जीवन जब कोई व्यक्ति जी रहा होता है, उसी दौर से हमें लगता है कि उन्हीं परिस्थितियों से उभर के जब कोई सामने आता है तो हम एकदम से उस व्यक्ति की तरफ आकृष्ट हो जाते हैं और उसमें हमें अपना अक्ष नज़र आता है। यह होता है उपन्यास, यानी कि समक्ष रखी हुई वस्तु को काल्पनिक आवरण पहना के इस तरीके से दिखाया जाना या इस तरीके से एक देखा जाना कि उसका परिणाम जो है वह समाज के लिए प्रेरणादायक हो। इसी तरीके से जो है उपन्यास, अगर विधा की बात करेंगे तो काफ़ी लंबी परंपरा है उपन्यास की। इसी की दूसरी तरफ जब हम बात कर रहे हैं आत्मकथा की, आत्मकथा यानी कि अपनी कथा। जब कोई व्यक्ति अपनी कथा कहता है, अपने बारे में जब वह बताता है और वह जब लिख कर समाज के सामने रखता है तो वह कहीं ना कहीं अपने आप को, जिसे हम कहेंगे कि सब कुछ अपना समक्ष व्यक्तित्व जो है वह समाज के सामने रख रहा है, जो खांडे की धार पर चलने के समान है। आत्मकथा विधा से यह उम्मीद की जाती है कि उसमें जो भी लिखा होगा वह सच होगा जैसा उसने जिया है। और इस विधा में की जो सबसे बड़ी कमी है वह हम क्या कहेंगे कि इसमें व्यक्ति जब अपने बारे में बताता है तो वह अपनी ही बातें बताता है, अपना ही पक्ष वह रख रहा होता है, जिससे दूसरा पक्ष महरूम रह जाता है कि हम कहीं ना कहीं आत्ममुग्ध होने की जो भावना है वह आत्मकथा विधा में ज़्यादा होती है। आज मैं आपके सामने चर्चा करूंगी कुछ उपन्यासों की और कुछ आत्मकथाओं की। कुछ उपन्यासों को जब हम देखेंगे तो हमें लगेगा कि यही वास्तविकता है, और जब हम आत्मकथाओं को जब हम देखेंगे या पढ़ेंगे तो हमें लगेगा कि ये पक्ष ऐसा भी है। ऐसा घिनौना पक्ष भी हो सकता है, किसी के जीवन का इतना कुरूप और स्याह पक्ष भी होता है। जब हम अपने आप को रखते हैं दूसरों के सामने तो हम अपने आप को बहुत ही सलीके से, मर्यादा से, संस्कार से और जिसे कहेंगे कि एक आवरण से हम समाज के सामने अपने आप को रखते हैं। हम कैसे हैं ये हमसे बेहतर कोई नहीं जानता है, लेकिन हम कैसे प्रस्तुत कर रहे हैं अपने आप को, वह एक दूसरा पक्ष है जिसे हम कहते हैं मुखौटा। एक व्यक्ति का अलग अलग जगह पर अलग अलग जो है व्यक्तित्व होता है और वह उसको अपने जीवन के, जिसे हम कहेंगे जीवन की जो भूमिका है उसको अदा करते करते अंततः क्या है, वह दुनिया से विदा हो जाता है। यही एक सच्चाई है। इसी सच्चाई को लेखक किस प्रकार से व्यक्त करते हैं। अगर हम बात करते हैं उपन्यासों में, तो उपन्यासों में अगर गोदान उपन्यास की हम बात करते हैं, प्रेमचंद ने गोदान उपन्यास लिखा और इस उपन्यास में उन्होंने एक किसान के जीवन की व्याथा का वर्णन किया। 1936 के बाद जब लिखा, यह उस समय के किसान की जो है दास्तान थी। आधुनिक किसान में और उस समय के किसान में जो है जमीन आसमान का फर्क है। आज का जो किसान है, जिसे हम कहते हैं कि जो खेती करता है, वह किस तरीके से आधुनिकता से लैस है। दूसरा, किस प्रकार से क्या वह प्राकृतिक खेती करता है या अपने लाभ के लिए जो है किस तरीके से रोज जहर बो रहा है, रासायनिक खादों का प्रयोग कर करके अधिक से अधिक उत्पादन के लिए वह किस तरीके से जो है वह अपने जो इसको, जिसे हम कहेंगे खेती को भी एक व्यवसायिक रूप दे रहा है। तो क्या खेती को व्यवसायिक रूप देना गलत है? क्या अपना लाभ सोचना गलत है? ऐसे बहुत से मुद्दे हैं जो गोदान और आज का जो किसान है उसकी, जिसे कहेंगे हम उसका जो अंतर है वह पाटते हैं। इसी तरीके से जब हम आत्मकथाओं की बात करते हैं तो क्या भूलूं क्या याद करूं, अगर पुरुषों की आत्मकथाओं में बात कर रहे हैं तो अगर महिलाओं की आत्मकथाओं की बात करें तो महिलाओं ने भी अपने जीवन को किस तरीके से रखा है। मुझे माफ करना, दिनेश नंदिनी डालमिया ने 1985 में यह आत्मकथा लिखी और इसे नाम दिया उपन्यास का। कौशल्या बैसंतरी ने दोहरा अभिशाप जो है वह आत्मकथा लिखी और उसने नाम दिया उसे उपन्यास का। कोई व्यक्ति आत्मकथा को उपन्यास का नाम कैसे दे सकता है, और कैसे यानी कि कहीं ना कहीं उपन्यास का नाम देकर वह उन सवालों से छूटना चाहता है जो उसकी आत्मकथा लिखने के बाद खड़े होंगे। अगर सबसे विवादित आत्मकथा की हम बात करते हैं तो प्रभा खेतान की आत्मकथा अन्या से अनन्या। अन्या से अनन्या में प्रभा खेतान ने लिखा कि किस तरीके से उसके बचपन में, जिसे हम आज कहते हैं कि यौन हिंसा, बच्चियों के साथ और बच्चों के साथ, लड़का लड़की सभी के साथ, जो कई बार जो तथ्य आंकड़े जो हैं हमारे सामने आते हैं तो हमारी रूह कांप जाती है। जिस बात को हमसे कहा जाता है कि ये बात कहीं नहीं बतानी है, कौन ऐसी लड़की होगी जिसको बचपन में ये नहीं कहा गया होगा कि तुमको कौन सी बात जो है बतानी है और कौन सी बात छुपानी है। शायद कहा जाता है कि महिलाओं की सिक्स सेंस बहुत तेज होती है, वह तुरंत इस चीज़ को भांप जाती है कि उसे क्या सब बात उसे बतानी चाहिए और क्या नहीं बतानी चाहिए। ये चीज़ें उसके जेहन में कहाँ से आती हैं? कहीं ना कहीं इससे उनका लाभ जुड़ा हुआ है, उनका हित जुड़ा हुआ है। अगर हम बात करते हैं छिन्नमस्ता की नायिका की, तो छिन्नमस्ता की नायिका जो है वह स्पष्ट रूप से लिखती है कि उसकी जो औरत की जो आज़ादी है वह कहाँ है, वह उसकी आत्मनिर्भरता में है। क्या लिखती हैं गुड़िया भीतर गुड़िया में एक मैत्रेयी पुष्पा कि एक औरत की जो स्वतंत्रता है वह उसके पर्स में निहित है, यानी कि लड़की का आत्मनिर्भर होना कितना जरूरी है। इसका क्या मतलब हुआ कि अगर एक लड़की आत्मनिर्भर है तो क्या उसका शोषण नहीं होगा? क्या स्त्री का जीवन वास्तव में शोषित है? आज के जो मुद्दे हैं वह बदल गए हैं और इन मुद्दों पर खुलकर चर्चाएं होने लगी हैं, जो आत्मकथाकार आत्मकथाएं लिखकर स्पष्ट रूप से लिख रही हैं कि उनके साथ ऐसा हुआ कब, जब वह कितने साल की थी। प्रभा खेतान मुश्किल से 12 और 15 साल के बीच की एक लड़की, जिसमें बताया है कि किस तरीके से उसी के भाई ने जो है उसके साथ यौन हिंसा की। किस प्रकार से कृष्णा अग्निहोत्री लिखती हैं, लगता नहीं है दिल मेरा में कि मुझे नहीं पता था कि जो सरदार जी, मुझे लगता था उन्हीं के रिश्ते में थे। मैं जैसे ही छत पे गई वो मुझे पकड़ लेते, मैं छोटी सी बच्ची थी, लेकिन मुझे ये पता था कि ये सही नहीं है। और एक दिन उन्होंने मुझे पकड़ा और किस प्रकार से उन्होंने मुझे चूमना शुरू किया, मेरे शरीर को छूना शुरू किया, तो मैं बहुत मुश्किल से बचकर मैं भागी। और मुझे ये चीज़ अच्छे से पता थी कि यह चीज़ें किसी को कही नहीं जाती हैं। जब प्रभा खेतान बताती हैं कि ऐसे ऐसे हुआ तो दाई माँ ने उनके मुँह पर हाथ रख दिया, कभी भी नहीं बेटा, कभी भी ये बात किसी से नहीं बतानी है, यहाँ तक कि भी अपने पति को भी तुम्हें यह बात नहीं बतानी है। यानी कि एक लड़की का शरीर ही सब कुछ है, उसे सिर्फ इसी रूप में, उसे देह के रूप में ही उसे देखा जाता है। क्या वह एक सिर्फ और सिर्फ एक, जिसे हम कहेंगे कि मांस का सिर्फ एक मांस का बनाया एक ढांचा है, या वह एक जीव है, या वह एक इंसान है, उसकी भावनाएं हैं, उसकी संवेदनाएं हैं और उसके एहसास हैं। जब हम उपन्यासों की बात करते हैं तो उपन्यासों में इसे कल्पना का रूप दिया जाता है और कल्पनाएं बड़ी मनमोहक होती हैं। पिंजर उपन्यास की जो नायिका है वह दूर तक सोचती सी नजर आती है कि कल्पनाओं का एक ऐसा संसार लेखक ने खींचा है। अमृता प्रीतम ने यह उपन्यास लिखा है और इस उपन्यास पे फिल्म भी बनी है। जो है रजनीगंधा फिल्म भी जो है मनु भंडारी की कहानी पर बनी हुई फिल्म है। कहने का मतलब क्या है कि एक नायिका की कल्पनाएं दिखाई गई हैं। एक लड़की को सबसे अच्छा क्या लगता है? सजा हुआ कमरा, फूलों से महकती हुई जो है एक बगिया सी है, उसे अगरबत्ती, धूप। क्या लिखती हैं कृष्णा अग्निहोत्री कि जब भी मैं जिसे उनका प्रेम संबंध होता है जज साहब से, तो जब भी मैं मिलने जाती हूँ उनसे, तो वो क्या करते हैं कि वो मेरी पसंद की अगरबत्ती को कमरे में लगा देते हैं। उसकी महक जो है उसकी महक उन्हें पता है कि ये पसंद है। ये आत्मकथा की घटना है, आत्मकथा की बात है। और उपन्यासों का संसार तो एक ऐसा संसार है जहाँ पर न सिर्फ जिसे हम कहेंगे स्त्रीगत मुद्दों को लेकर, बहुत से सामाजिक मुद्दों को लेकर गबन उपन्यास अगर प्रेमचंद का अगर हम पढ़ते हैं तो उस उपन्यास में हम देखते हैं कि किस तरीके से एक व्यक्ति जो है वह जिसे हम कहेंगे रिश्वतखोरी या लालच में आके किस तरीके से अपनी चीज़ों को जिसे हम कहेंगे मूल रूप से सामाजिक अगर हम इसे समस्या कहें तो आज भी इसे हम चारों तरफ देख सकते हैं कि व्यक्ति जो उसके पास है वह उसे दिखाई ही नहीं देता है। वह उसे क्या दिखता है जो उसके पास नहीं है, वह उसी की चाह में लगा हुआ है, दौड़ रहा है, भाग रहा है, लेकिन जो उसके पास मूल चीज़ है उसकी तरफ उसका ध्यान ही नहीं है। और जो वह पाना चाह रहा है उसी में जो है उसी के लिए वह क्या कर रहा है, जो वह पाना चाह रहा है उसी के लिए वह जो उसके पास है उसे भी देख ही नहीं पा रहा है। और ऐसी लालच की लोलुप्तता से वह ग्रसित है कि वह उसी की तरफ भाग रहा है और अपने आज के जीवन को भी नहीं जी पा रहा है। ये गबन उपन्यास यानी कि जिसे हम कहते हैं कि लालच की पराकाष्ठा, जिसे हम कहेंगे कि एक स्त्री जो है वह गहनों के लिए, गहनों के प्रति जो उसका प्रेम है वह दिखाया है। गहनों के प्रति प्रेम के बारे में कहा जाता है जिसे हम कहेंगे कि कृष्णा ये मैत्री पुष्पा ने क्या कहा कि मेरी माँ की एक आदत है, वह क्या करती है, वह जब भी कोई विशिष्ट जो बात होती है तो वह बीच में जरूर आके कूदती है। मेरी शादी हो गई, शादी के बाद मैं अपनी ससुराल चली गई। मेरी माँ की तमन्ना थी कि मेरी शादी किसी डॉक्टर से हो, और मेरी माँ की ये भी तमन्ना थी कि मैं एक IAS ऑफिसर बनूं, लेकिन मैं ढीठ थी, मैं जिद्दी थी और मैंने कहा कि नहीं, मुझे शादी करनी है। मैंने ऐलान कर दिया कि नहीं, मुझे तो अब शादी करनी है। मेरी माँ को बहुत गुस्सा आया, विधवा महिला थी उनकी माँ, और उसके बाद अपनी इकलौती बेटी की परवरिश में उन्होंने पूरी जी जान लगाई। और लेकिन बेटी भी जिद्दी, तो कहती हैं कि मेरी माँ को जब मैंने कहा कि मुझे शादी करनी है तो उन्होंने कहा ठीक है, लेकिन मैं शादी किसी डॉक्टर लड़के से ही करूँगी। और उनकी माँ ने पूरा जो है उनके पास जो भी उनके जानने वाले रिश्तेदार जितने भी थे सब उनके उसमें लगा दिया। और उसके बाद जब उनकी शादी तय हो जाती है, उसके बाद वो ससुराल जाती हैं, तो ससुराल में जाने के बाद क्या कह रही हैं मैत्री पुष्पा की मेरी माँ यहाँ भी कूदी। मेरी माँ ने, यानी कि एक बेटी कितनी स्पष्टता से अपनी माँ के व्यक्तित्व को वर्णित कर रही है। जहाँ हम रिश्तों की बात करते हैं, जहाँ हमें लगता है कि यहाँ हमें चुप रहना चाहिए या हमें ये चीज़ें बाहर नहीं बताई जाती हैं, उन सब चीज़ों को आत्मकथाकार अपने आत्मकथाओं के माध्यम से समाज के समक्ष रख रहे हैं, जिसे हम कहेंगे कि समाज को एक स्वच्छता, जिसे हम कहेंगे समाज को एक ऊर्जा और एक रचनात्मकता प्राप्त हो रही है कि चीज़ें जैसी हैं, रिश्ते जो हैं वह रिश्ते होने से ही सत्य नहीं होते हैं, रिश्ते सच होने से सत्य होते हैं। अगर आप सच्चाई के साथ नहीं खड़े हैं, अगर आप सिर्फ रिश्ते के साथ खड़े हैं और या सच्चाई के साथ खड़े हैं, आप अगर सच के साथ, अगर जब इंसान जब सच के साथ जब खड़ा रहता है तो क्या है, वह जो झूठी लोलुपता, पाखंडता, लालच, ऐसी चीज़ों से जो रिश्ते जो जिसे दिखाया है आत्मकथाकार ने गुड़िया भीतर गुड़िया में कि जो मेरी जो माँ है वह जब उसके पिता की जब मृत्यु हो जाती है तो मेरे दादा जिनसे चला नहीं जाता है वह भी एकदम से जवान हो उठते हैं और भाग कर कचहरी में जाते हैं। कारण जमीन जायदाद के लिए लोग क्या है, मैं इकलौती संतान, चाचा ताऊ, जो यहाँ तक कि मेरे मामाओं ने भी मेरी ज़मीन को हड़पने की कोशिश की। एक ऐसा यथार्थ जिसे हम देखना नहीं चाहते हैं, जिसे कल्पनाओं के माध्यम से हम ऐसा आवरण पहना देते हैं कि ये हमारे रिश्ते हैं, रिश्तों में ऐसा जो है रिश्तों की जो मर्यादा है वह ढकी रहनी चाहिए। रिश्तों की एक अपनी, जिसे हम कहेंगे कि अपनी एक रिश्तों का एक अपना समाज शास्त्र है। हमें उन रिश्तों और मर्यादाओं को निर्वाह करना चाहिए, और लड़की है तो उसे तुरंत रूप से उन चीज़ों को स्वीकार करना चाहिए। लेकिन इधर प्रभा खेतान ने भी उस यथार्थ को, उस सच को अपनी आत्मकथा के माध्यम से समाज के सामने रखा। और दूसरी तरफ जो है मैत्री पुष्पा ने भी लोलुप्तता और लालच से भरे हुए, अगर किसी गांव में रहती हैं, झांसी की हैं जो मैत्री पुष्पा हैं, और कहती हैं कि मैं अपनी माँ की इकलौती संतान हूँ, चूंकि पिता की मृत्यु के बाद सारी जमीन स्वाभाविक रूप से मेरी होगी, मेरी माँ की मृत्यु हो जाती है, लेकिन मेरी आंखों में आंसू नहीं है। क्यों? एक बेटी होने के नाते तो मुझे फूट फूट के रोना चाहिए था, लेकिन मैं नहीं रोई। मैं देख रही थी उस पूरे षड्यंत्र को कि जमीन को हड़पने के लिए आज भी किस तरीके से लोग लगे हुए हैं, किस तरीके की राजनीति जो है वह चल रही है। इसी प्रकार से जब हम उपन्यासों में बात करते हैं, आपका बंटी उपन्यास की, आपका बंटी उपन्यास में मनु भंडारी ने जो है वर्णन किया है एक ऐसे पति पत्नी का, आधुनिकता की जिसे हम मिसाल देते हैं। पति भी नौकरी करता है, पत्नी भी नौकरी करती है, पति का भी एक अपना अहम है, लेकिन जब पति पत्नी दोनों का अहम जब आपस में टकराता है तो किस तरीके से बच्चा पिसता है। आज यह समस्या हमें आम होती सी नजर आ रही है। जिस समस्या का वर्णन मनु भंडारी ने किया है आपका बंटी उपन्यास में, कि बच्चा जो है वह माता के पास भी जाता है, पिता के पास भी बच्चा जाता है, और कहीं ना कहीं बच्चा चाहता है कि वह अपने पिता के पास भी रहे। और क्योंकि सगुन जो है वह क्या है, एक स्कूल, वो प्रिंसिपल है भाई। प्रिंसिपल होने के बाद उसे इसलिए वह डॉक्टर से शादी नहीं करती है कि उसे उनसे प्रेम है या वह रिश्ते में रहना चाहती है या फिर अंततः उसे एक साथी की ज़रूरत है। पूरे उपन्यास को पढ़ने के बाद एक चीज़ स्पष्ट रूप से सामने आती है, वह भी दिखाना चाहती है, वह भी दिखाना चाहती है कि मैं भी कम नहीं हूँ। अगर तुम शादी कर सकते हो तो मैं भी शादी कर सकती हूँ, तुम्हारी अपनी ज़िंदगी है तो मुझे भी जो है कोई रोक नहीं सकता है। और वह इसी जिद के चलते शादी करती है। और एक ऐसा दृश्य, एक ऐसा मार्मिक दृश्य मनु भंडारी ने इस उपन्यास के माध्यम से खींचा है कि जब वह डॉक्टर साहब के पास जाती है, उसका बेटा उसके बिना कभी नहीं सोता था, और वह देखता है डॉक्टर साहब को किस तरीके से, जैसे उन्होंने जो है पत्नी से जब पहली रात जब वह मिलने के लिए जाते हैं, उस दृश्य का चित्र मनु भंडारी ने खींचा है, जिसको देखने के बाद जो है जिसे हम कहेंगे वितृष्णा सी मन में पैदा होती है, घिन सी आती है कि एक बच्चा, उसकी आंख खुल जाती है और वह जो दृश्य देखता है तो वह दृश्य उसकी आंखों से कभी हटता नहीं है। एक मासूम बच्चे का बचपन किस तरीके से आज माता पिता होकर भी हम निगलते जा रहे हैं, इस समस्या की तरफ मनु भंडारी ने जो समाज का ध्यान आकृष्ट किया है। आप सक्षम हैं, अच्छा है, आप पढ़े लिखे हैं, अच्छा है, आप जो है नौकरी पेशा हैं, और भी अच्छा है, आप महिला हो के मजबूत हैं तो और भी अच्छी चीज़ है। लेकिन सिर्फ और सिर्फ दूसरा एक सवाल से यहाँ पे खड़ा होता है कि अगर माँ होने का मतलब यह जरूरी नहीं है कि माँ ही बच्चे की परवरिश करेगी। आज जो सवाल किए जा रहे हैं, सवाल तो जायज़ है, सवाल तो नाजायज़ भी नहीं है कि भाई हम ही क्यों बच्चे का पालन पोषण करें, माँ पे ही बच्चे की जिम्मेवारी क्यों होनी चाहिए जब वह भी कमाती है, वह भी आत्मनिर्भर है। सवाल तो स्वाभाविक है, सवाल में कोई कमी नहीं है, लेकिन सवाल के पीछे छिपी हुई जो मार्मिकता है, सवाल के पीछे जो छुपा हुआ जो भाव है कि बच्चे ने क्या गुनाह किया है, हम आज समाज को क्या दे रहे हैं, यानी कि एक ऐसे सामाजिक, जिसे हम ऐसी सामाजिकता का वर्णन मनु भंडारी ने आपका बंटी उपन्यास में किया है जो यत्र तत्र हमें देखने को मिलता है। अब हम बात करते हैं कि एक महिला कौशल्या बसंत्री ने दोहरा अभिशाप लिखा, वह उसको उन्होंने उपन्यास का नाम दे दिया। लेकिन दूसरी तरफ जो है शिकंजे का दर्द सुशीला टागभोरे ने अपनी आत्मकथा लिखी, और आत्मकथा में उन्होंने सारे मुद्दों को एकदम से, जिसे हम कहेंगे कि जस का तस उन्होंने लिखा। उनके पति आते हैं और आहिस्ता से बोलते हैं पानी लेना है, तो वो सुनाई नहीं देता है, तो कहती है कि सुनाई मुझे दिया नहीं, तो कह रहे मुझे प्यासा मारोगी, तुमने मुझे पानी तक नहीं दिया, हाँ मैं प्यास से के मारे क्या मैं मर जाऊं। और जैसे ही वो खाना देती हैं तो ऐसे ही बर्तन फेंकते हैं। देखा होगा घरों में शराब पी के जो है कितने ऐसे पुरुष होंगे बिना शराब पिए भी, जो अहम, या जिसे कहेंगे पुरुषता, या जिसे हम कहेंगे पुरुषत्व का प्रतीक, बर्तन फेंकती हुई महिलाएं हमें कितनी नजर आती हैं और बर्तन फेंकते हुए पुरुष हमें कितने नजर आते हैं। यह है सुशीला टागभोरे ने अपनी आत्मकथा में लिखा है कि मेरे पति ने खाने से भरी हुई थाली ली और उसको ऐसे फेंका, और वह जहाँ पे बर्तन साफ करते हैं वहाँ पे जाके गिरी, और मेरा रोम रोम जो है झंझना सा गया कि क्रोध से, लेकिन मैं बोल नहीं सकती थी। अगर बोलूँगी तो क्या है, बोलूँगी तो स्वाभाविक रूप से पिटूंगी, और बार बार मेरे पति मेरी खूब पिटाई करते और तब तक मुझे मारते रहते जब तक जो है उनके हाथों में दर्द नहीं होने लग जाता। लेकिन मैं भी ढीठ थी, मैं अपनी बात कहे बिना नहीं रुकती थी, चाहे कुछ भी हो मैं अपनी बात कह के ही दम लेती थी। इसी प्रकार से जो पुरुष की द्वारा की गई हिंसा है उसका वर्णन अगर हम करते हैं गोदान उपन्यास में, गोदान उपन्यास में धनिया बोलती है अपने पति को। पति जब उसके भाई की जब बात आती है, मर्जाद यानी कि मर्यादा की जब बात आती है, तो होरी धनिया पे हाथ उठा देता है और इस पे जो है कहा जाता है कि भाई दोहरी ने धनिया पे हाथ उठाया। लेकिन प्रेमचंद की ने जो गोदान उपन्यास लिखा उसमें होरी का धनिया पर हाथ उठाना और सुशीला टागभोरे के पति का उन पर हाथ उठाना, दोनों में जमीन आसमान का अंतर है। यहाँ पे वहाँ पर एक कल्पना हमें नजर आती है कि जो व्यक्ति गुस्से में होता है और उसके पास शब्द नहीं होते हैं तो वह स्वाभाविक रूप से आक्रामक हो जाता है और वह हाथ उठा देता है। आज दूसरी तरफ जो है वो एक दया का भाव है, एक गुस्से का भाव है, क्रोध का भाव है कि आप ऐसा कैसे कर सकते हैं। कृष्णा अग्निहोत्री के पति जो कृष्णा अग्निहोत्री किसी से बात कर रही हैं, गुड़िया उन्होंने लगता नहीं है दिल मेरा में लिखा है कि मैं किसी से बात कर रही थी, तो वो पार्टी में थे और जब मेरे पति ने मुझे ऊपर बुलाया होटल के कमरे में और वो है कमरा बंद करके उन्होंने मुझे इतना मारा, यानी कि वो तुम्हारी हिम्मत कैसे हुई, तुम क्यों हंस के बात कर रही थी, क्या मतलब है। यानी कि देह से परे जो है वह देखा ही नहीं जा रहा है। हाँ, यहाँ जंगल के दावेदार उपन्यास की अगर हम बात करते हैं तो उसमें एक पात्र है साली। साली के पति उनसे उम्र में काफ़ी बड़ा है और जिसमें कहा जाता है कि अगर पति बड़ा है तो स्वाभाविक रूप से स्त्री की जिसे मूल रूप से जिसे हम कहते हैं कि शारीरिक जो इच्छाएं होंगी वह उनकी तृप्ति नहीं होती है, जिसके कारण वह किससे जुड़ी है, जिसके कारण वह नायक जिसे कहते हैं बिरसा मुंडा का उसके प्रति जो प्रेम है वह इसी चीज़ का प्रतीक है, इसी चीज़ का जो है यही आकृष्ट कर रहा है साली को। लेकिन साली क्या कहती है कि बिरसा की मौत के बाद का दृश्य देखते हैं तो हम देखेंगे कि उसमें साली ने क्या कहा। वह बिरसा की चुपके से बिरसा की जो है राख उठा लेती है और कहती है इसे मैं जंगल में बिखेर दूंगी। और जब जहाँ जहाँ पे बिरसा की राख गिरेगी वहाँ पे पेड़ उगेंगे और जब पेड़ उगेंगे तो वो पेड़ किस चीज़ के प्रतीक होंगे, अपने लिए, अपने वजूद के लिए लड़ने वाले सैनिकों के एक विचार के प्रतीक होंगे, एक रागात्मक जिसे हम कहेंगे जो क्या कहा जाता है कि भाव, उसका जो निश्चल और राष्ट्र प्रेम का जो भाव है साली का, वह जंगल के दावेदार उपन्यास में प्रस्तुत होता है। एक कहानी यह भी मैं मनु भंडारी लिखती हैं कि मैंने क्या किया, जैसे ही इमरजेंसी लग जाती है और हमारे यहाँ के पास से हम जो है दूध का जो है बड़े बड़े से ड्रम भर के लेके जाते थे। उस समय पे देखते हैं कि इधर से दूध बेचने वाला आता था और दूध बेचने वाला जब आया तो उनके उसी समय जब वो जो हिंदू मुसलमान का नाम लेकर जब झगड़े हो जाते हैं तो वहीं पे उनके सारे ड्रम रखे रहते हैं, खड़े खड़े से सारे दूध खराब होने लगता है। हम चुपचाप से हाथ जोड़ के जाते हैं, विनती करते हैं और इधर भूखे मर रहे लोगों के लिए या जो इतने दिनों से जो चल रहा था उनके लिए वह दूध ले आते हैं। इसी प्रकार का एक वर्णन जो है मनु भंडारी ने किया है कि एक उनकी जो बहन है, उनकी जो बहन के पास जो चूड़ियाँ थी, उन्होंने उस समय एक ऐसा दौर चला कि चूड़ियाँ गहने सब कुछ देश के लिए अर्पित कर दिए। इसी प्रकार से उन्होंने एक वर्णन किया है कि एक बाबा थे जो उनके यहाँ पे आते थे, किस लिए, वह जो साड़ियाँ पहनती थी उनको कलर करते थे। कई दिनों तक वह बाबा कहीं दिखाई नहीं दिए। लगभग 2-2.5 साल के बाद जो आते हैं गली में, मैंने वही आवाज़ सुनी, रंगरेज 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 रंग रंगवा लीजिए, रंगरेज आया है। और जैसे ही मैं बाहर निकली अपने फ्लैट से, मैंने बाबा को देखा। मैं दौड़ी हुई सी उनके पास गई, साड़ी के लिए नहीं। बाबा कितने दिनों से हम तुम्हें ढूंढ रहे थे, कहाँ थे तुम? इतने दिनों से हम जैसा चाह रहे थे वैसा हमारा काम ही नहीं हो पा रहा था। तो वह रो पड़ते हैं और कहते हैं जो ज़मीन है उस पर हाथ लगाते हैं, मिट्टी को उठाते हैं और अपने माथे से लगाकर कहते हैं कि बेटा यह जो भूमि है यह हमारी माँ है, यह भूमि को छोड़कर हम कहाँ जाएं। हिंदुस्तान पाकिस्तान का जब बताते हैं कि जब झगड़ा हो रहा था तो उन्होंने यही कहा, ये ज़मीन, ये धरती हमारी माँ है, इसे हम छोड़ के कहीं नहीं जाएंगे, और ऐसा कह कह के बाबा की आंखों में आंसू झरझर बहने लगे। तो एक ऐसी राष्ट्रीयता का वर्णन जो है अपनी आत्मकथा में, एक कहानी यह भी में मनु भंडारी ने किया है। उपन्यास में जहाँ कल्पनाएं होती हैं जो व्यक्ति को प्रेरित करती हैं, लेकिन आत्मकथा में यथार्थ होता है, एक ऐसा सच होता है जो व्यक्ति ने जिया होता है। तो यह है जो अंतर है, यह एक बहुत बड़ा अंतर है उपन्यास और आत्मकथा में। और आत्मकथा विधा से यह उम्मीद की जाती है कि वह सच के करीब नहीं, एकदम सच होता है, एक एक लिखा हुआ शब्द उसमें सच होता है और उसकी प्रामाणिकता पे जो है विश्वास किया जा सकता है। तो यह था आत्मकथा विधा और उपन्यास विधा का मूल अंतर।
Are you interested in television journalism or radio journalism or online journalism? Or do you want to learn with the flexibility of open learning? Or if you are a working professional wants to enhance your knowledge and skill with certification in the field of electronic media, then School of Journalism and New Media Study IGNOU offers PG Diploma in Electronic Media for you. This program includes audio and audio-visual program production for radio, television and online platforms. Here are some important details about the program. We have total 8 courses of 32 credits, 6 theory courses, 1 practical and 1 project. Eligibility: bachelor's degree in any subject. Minimum duration 1 year, maximum 3 years. Medium is English, but the students can write their examinations, assignments, practical and project in Hindi also. So if you are interested in television, radio or online media, please come and join IGNOU's PG Diploma in Electronic Media.
Welcome to all. Assessment is an integral part of teaching learning process. And how in actual practice we are doing the assessment practices. In this session, we are going to discuss about managing assessment. So when we think of assessment, we can see that it is an integral part of teaching learning process and it is an ongoing process in the educational context. Assessment of student learning, it needs not only be considered in a pedagogical context, but also it is to be viewed in a larger context. Why it is in a larger context is that it demands assessing 21st century skills. We know that these 21st century skills include a variety of lifelong skills, soft skills, digital skills, entrepreneurship skills, collaborative skills. Like that, we can see there are different skills that is important when we try to assess learners. So in this session, the main objectives are that is differentiate among measurement, assessment and evaluation, list the features of evaluation, develop understanding about the relationships among objectives, learning experiences and evaluation, categorize the functions of evaluation, develop understanding about the characteristics of a good test. So let us see how the terms are differing from each other. Before going to the different terms of assessment, we have to think that the word assess is derived from the Latin verb which means assiduare, and the term assiduare means to sit with. So this implies that it is something that we have to do with and for students and not to students. This is put forward by Green in the year 1999. So what we are doing, it is meant for the students and not to the students. So now there are some terms which are coming or overlapping while we see in the literature review or in general context how do we use. The terms are measurement, assessment and evaluation. So now let us have the differentiation among these terms. So here when we look at the first term, that is measurement, we can see that measurement means assigning some numerals according to certain rules for one's abilities or traits. And what is these numerals? We are putting some kind of numbers so that we can express this measurement in terms of numbers. Coming to the next term, that is assessment, we can see that it means collecting information about the quality or quantity of change in a student. So just collecting the information. And this information include both aspects, that the quantitative aspects as well as the qualitative aspects. Coming to the next term, that is evaluation, we can see that evaluation, it is a broader concept which means judging the merit, value or desirability of a measured performance. So we have seen the three different terms and how it is to be used. Suppose we say that a student score 70% marks in a particular subject, that shows the measurement. But when we say that the student stood in the midst among the whole class, it comes as the second or something. We say that we are assessing their traits and the abilities. We call them as evaluation. So let us see the features of evaluation. What are the features of evaluation? When we look at the features of evaluation, the first feature what we can see is that evaluation should be comprehensive in nature. What does this comprehensiveness denotes? We know that the progress and the achievement of the learner we are going to assess in a holistic manner. When we are trying to assess the learner in a holistic manner, what we have to take, that we need a holistic approach. And both the scholastic as well as the co-scholastic aspects will come into consideration. And the next thing, we can see that it has a continuous process. It can be considered as a continuous process. We cannot state that it can be done at the end of the instruction or end of the examination or end of a particular term. It's not like that. In the classroom situation, while the activity is going on, this assessment goes on along with the activity at every stage, so that we can have a clear-cut understanding about the progress of the learner. And when we look at the next feature, we can see that it has both quantitative and qualitative aspects. that we have discussed that we are taking into consideration of the quantitative aspect as well as the qualitative aspect. And then we can see that there is an interrelatedness between the learning objectives, learning experiences, and evaluation. This point we are going to discuss after some time. And the next feature, what we can see is that it is a cooperative process. It's not the process that is done by the teacher. It's not like that. We can see that nowadays we are giving importance for the self-assessment as well as the peer assessment. So here we can see that a team, a cooperative process is happening in the process of assessment. The assessment done by the teacher, and when it comes to the group assessment, the group activity, there we can see the group assessment may be taking place, then the peer assessment will be there and the self-assessment will be there. Then we can see that it employs various devices and sources of secure, valid evidence of achievement of objectives. So different types of devices can be adopted in the process of assessment. Generally, the most important device that we utilize is the test. But nowadays, besides the test, we can see that inside the classroom, different types of tools such as the rubrics, the portfolios, then other things, the oral presentation, the multiple means of presentation, the project work, everything we are adopting in the process of assessment. Hence, we can state that the assessment we can do in different ways by adopting different devices and tools and techniques of assessment. Then here I want to state about a case that Anita is a quiet girl in the class that seemed to study everything around her. Her teacher noticed that she is shy, reluctant to participate in group choruses and often likes to be alone. Still, the teacher has never found any problem with her. Only when the teacher gives a test on the language development for each of her students does she realize that Anita has a problem. So when we go through this case, what we can see is that there arises two questions. What is the first question? The first question is, what is the problem with Anita? When we started the beginning of the case, we can see that she is a quiet girl and she is doing all the things. But why she is keeping away from the group, or when the group assignments is done? What is her problem? So here comes the next question, that is, why did the teacher fail in understanding Anita in the beginning? So these two questions is relevant when we deal with each learner. What is happening here is that we can see that the teacher fails to understand the progress of the student in the beginning. When did she understand? We can say that she understand when the group activity was given and at a later stage. What is the problem with Anita in this case? In such case, we can think that the problem is with the language development. The learner, Anita, is having the difficulty in the easy usage of language, so that she is lagging behind the learners. As her language is not up to the mark with other learners, she wants to be away from the group work so that she can concentrate on her own, at her own pace. So this type of such cases are relevant as teachers in classroom. So how a teacher can understand the problem of the child so that the teacher can adopt the rest of the measures while assessing Anita. So here the teacher has to use a different method to assess the learner. And the next one, what we are going to discuss is the place of evaluation in the educative process. What is the role of evaluation? We have seen in the characteristics of evaluation that there is an interrelatedness between objectives, evaluation, and learning experiences. What do we mean by objective? They are the observable and measurable changes that happens after the process of instruction. So after framing one kind of objective, what is important is that we have to frame the learning experiences based on the objectives. How do we frame the learning experiences? Here, the learning experiences must be framed in terms of the objectives. It should not be away from the objectives. And how do we assess the learning experiences? That is also according to the learning experiences we have to adopt such a evaluation. So we can see that there is an interlinking and interrelatedness between these three terms, that is objectives, learning experiences and evaluation. Suppose in a communicative English class, we want to test the oral ability of the learner. So in that case, the learning experiences may be the oral reading of a particular document, and that test, it cannot be done with the help of the written test. There the oral test has to be given. So the oral test will come as the assessment tool or the evaluation tool. So we can see that this objectives, it is always interrelated with the learning experiences, and from the learning experiences we should adopt the correct evaluation. So there we can see a linkage between the objective, learning experiences and evaluation. So hence we can see, if we put an arrow mark, it goes to and fro, so that showing the interlinking and the interrelatedness between these three objectives. Next, let us discuss about the functions of assessment. When we look at the functions of assessment, we can see that the assessment of abilities, it is a function, then diagnosis, prediction, guidance, then grading, and then selection. So let us discuss each of the functions in detail. What is the function of assessment of abilities? When we think of the abilities, we are speaking about the cognitive abilities and the co-cognitive abilities. So all these abilities should be assessed. Earlier, in the traditional way, what we are assessing, that is only the cognitive abilities. But now, as the comprehensive development of the learner is taking into consideration, we have to assess the co-cognitive abilities. Then comes the importance of the another function, that is diagnosis. What should we diagnose? We have to diagnose the weak points of the learners. And based on the diagnosis of these weak points, the teacher can conduct the remedial teaching. Then comes the prediction, where through the process of assessment, we can predict what type of interest or aptitude the learner has, or the progress of the learner in future can be predicted. Then comes guidance. After understanding some of the weak points of the learners, the teacher can provide the scaffolding or the guidance to the learners to proceed further. Then comes grading. That grading denotes that in which what type of grade or category the learner belongs to. And the next one, that is the selection. When we think of the selection, we can see that in many institutions, this selection test were conducting. For example, B.Ed entrance test. Why we are conducting the entrance examination? We want to know whether the learner has an aptitude for teaching. So after the entrance test, we are going to select the learners to study in the Bachelor of Education program. So such type of selection purposes also, it is also the functions of assessment. Next, we can discuss about the characteristics of a good test. We know that in classroom, there are teacher-made test, the standardized test. So here, what are the characteristics of a good test? When we think of characteristics, we have to say about the three terms validity, reliability, and usability. What do we mean by reliability? Reliability, a test is reliable if it gives consistent results of measurement on its administration of different occasions. So, at whatever period we have conducted the test, it should give the same score at whatever context, at whatever time. So, then we can say that the test is reliable. How can we measure the reliability of the test? For that, we can adopt three methods, that is the test retest method, parallel form method or equivalent method, and split half method. Let us have some discussion on these three methods. First one, test retest method. From the term itself, we can know that we are going to conduct the test one time, and after a gap of some time, we are going to reconduct the test again. So that it is known as test and retest method. Then we will get the two scores, and we are going to calculate it with the Pearson coefficient of correlation. Then we are going to find how much difference is that. In the case of the equivalent method or the parallel form method, as part with the original test, a parallel test is also going to construct, and then we will conduct the two tests at the same time on the same group. Then we will get the scoring. That scores is going to calculate with the help of the Pearson coefficient of correlation, so that we can find whether the test is reliable or not. And the last method, that is the split half method. From the term itself, we are going to split the test into two halves. Suppose the first half we may be considered the odd numbered items, and the second half we are going to take the even numbered items. So these two tests we are going to conduct on the same group, and we will get the reliability of the half of the test. How do we find the reliability of the full test? For this, we are going to calculate it with the Spearman-Brown formula. With this, we are going to calculate the reliability of the full test. So we have seen how the reliability of a test can be done with the help of the three methods, that is the test retest method, the equivalent or the parallel form method, and the split half method. And the next one, the validity. What does this validity mean? A test is said to be valid if it measures what it is supposed to measure. Or other words, in the words of Cronbach, he defines validity as the extent to which a test measures what it purports to measure. So that we can see the validity of the test. Then when we think of validity, we can see that there are four phases of validity, where it comes content validity, phase validity, construct validity, and predictive validity. Let us have a discussion of each validity. What does this phase validity means? It means that whether the test appears to measure what it claims to measure. That gives the content validity. Coming to the construct validity, the extent to which a test captures a specific theoretical construct or trait, and it overlaps with some of the other aspects of validity. That gives the construct validity. Coming to the next type of validity, that is the content validity, the extent to which the items on a test are fairly representative of the entire domain the test seeks to measure. So whether all the content has been covered. Then comes the predictive validity, the degree to which a test accurately predicts a criterion that will occur in the future. So it has some kind of prediction can be made in such type of predictive validity. So we have seen the different types of validity. Then comes the usability. before going to the usability, we can think that this usability, in what way the test is usable. What does it mean that a test is usable? It refers to practicability. We can think that it is the practical aspects of a test. We cannot conduct a test to show the intelligence or the genuineness of the paper set. That usability, it includes two things, ease and economy. In what all aspect the ease and economy works? That ease and economy in terms of energy, time and money. So usability, it means the test should be easy in administering. First one, before administering, it should be easy to construct, easy in administering, easy in scoring, easy in interpreting, and economic in terms of money and time. So here, the easy to construct, the construction, first, while constructing the test, what are the aspects should be taken into account? The first one, the target group, at what level we want to construct a test. What are the objectives to be covered while constructing the test? That also we have to take into account. Then the time, the duration of the test, the total marks of the test, all these things comes when we think of the construction of the test. The difficulty level, the weightage to be given for each content, the weightage to be given for the different objectives, all these things should be taken into account while we speak about the easy to construct. Then easy in administering, that whether it can be administered, whether it is an online test or an offline test. So in that cases, we have to think of the feasibility of administering this test, and then easy in scoring. How do we score? Whether it is in the grade form or in the marks form, and how whether it is easy in scoring. For such cases, we have to avoid the decimal point marks. Decimal marks, we are always giving the round marks of scoring. Then easy in interpreting. So for every test, there is an interpretation. How do we interpret a particular test? And then we can see what is important is that the economic in terms of money and time. So when we prepare the question paper, we have to think that whether it is apt for the particular level, the particular location, and the time. It is an important aspect whether the time is taking into consideration, and then the money. We cannot spend a lot of money for the construction of a particular test. So here we can see that the important thing that we have seen in the case of assessment, that assessment, when we think of assessment, we cannot overlap with the other terms like assessment, measurement and evaluation. So this assessment, it is an important aspect in teaching learning process, or we can say that it is an integral part of and an ongoing process in the educational context. So here the context we can see that is not only the school context or the classroom context, it is outside the school context also. When we give the students some kind of work like the project work, there we are taking the students to outside the classroom and we are conducting the test. So in this session we have covered how this assessment is an important aspect and what are the functions of assessment, the features of evaluation, the functions of evaluation and the characteristics of a good test. So all these aspects should be taken into consideration when we try to manage assessment. And the tools what we can use, that is also an important thing. So, based on the learning objectives, what is the place of objectives and what is the relationship, the interlinking between objectives, learning experiences, and evaluation? By taking into consideration all these three aspects, we can surely manage the process of assessment. Thank you.